Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gabriel Peavy. I'm an MBA student at Southeastern and a graduate assistant for the sales program. And I have the honor this afternoon to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon, and that is the Secretary of Economic Development. Secretary Bourgeois has had 3 decades of experience in building, transforming, and sustaining organizations through strategic planning, project development, fundraising, and advocacy. She's an active member of the International Women's Forum and serves in leadership roles on several boards, including past chairman of GNO Incorporated, a board member of the North Shore Business Council, and Lakeview Regional Medical Center. Known for her visionary acumen, she emphasizes innovation, collaboration, and meaningful alliances, all of which are crucial components to creating thriving communities and a thriving state. She and her husband, Mr. Mace, have 4 grown children and live in Covington. Please help me welcome Secretary Susan to the stage.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure that I like following William for a few reasons, and I'm just going to start with that. First, the last thing someone said about him was that he's brilliant and awesome. So right there goes the bar. And then the other piece is that, you'll see as part of my presentation here shortly, I retired about a year ago, and somehow I'm now one of those back in the workforce people. So I don't know if it's great that all that related to me or it's not. But thank you all so much for having me today and for being here and investing your day in what you've done. And particularly thank you, Dr. Lopez and Dr. Wainwright, for putting this together, the first ever. As many of you know, my roots are here. My family's still here. I'm still here. It's a long drive on I-12 every day. So I'm thrilled to be doing this. So I was retired, right? Here's my old office. I was in Covington. I saw most of you in this room a couple times a month in meetings like this, having conversations about business opportunities and quality of life issues and community development opportunities on the North Shore. So I decided in July of last year that it was time for me to go do something else, which I thought was going to be, maybe yoga on a Tuesday and Thursday or something. And the foundation is in great hands and moving forward. And so come this January, I got a phone call from some folks real close to the newly elected governor who said, would you have any interest at all in coming to Baton Rouge and serving in your new office and being Secretary of Economic Development for the state of Louisiana? I was incredibly honored, didn't really know what qualifications I had to do that. And frankly, the only thing about it that made me feel like I might fit in that role and excited me is that Governor Landry said, are you willing to blow some stuff up? And being willing to blow some stuff up is the only reason that I accepted this job. And here is the number one reason. And I think the young adults who are in this room, this is for y'all, but this is my why. So how many years have we all heard, in Louisiana, our kids have to choose between home and opportunity, family and opportunity elsewhere? Well, when that, I have a 22-year-old. I have multiple 22-year-olds, actually. That's a long story. But that when it becomes real for you, that your children, your grandchildren are choosing between home, family, the place that they love, versus economic opportunity, is when I said that's an unacceptable choice. And it's an unacceptable choice for me, but it's an unacceptable choice for us all. So I took on this role because this is the unacceptable statistic that I understand y'all heard from Ted Abernathy earlier this morning. Look at that map. Look at the states that are losing population. There is no acceptable reason that Louisiana is yellow on this map. We are the only southern state since 2020 that has lost population. The bottom line is we cannot accept it, but we also can't change our trajectory in Louisiana and change those statistics and change those outmigration patterns until we change simply the way that we do things. So that references back to blowing some things up. when I walked into our department, and there are a few of my folks here, I don't know where the table is. Where are the LED folks? Emma, where are you pointing? One of the first things I said is, so week one, I said, well, I'd like to have a meeting with all the team members who are the direct reports to the secretary. I'd like to meet them. I'd like to meet them, get to know who they are, get to know what their jobs are. So the first thing that was shocking to me was there were 26 people in that room. That didn't make a whole lot of structural sense to me. And the second piece is when I met everybody and they're all lovely people, I said, great, show me, show of hands, right, in this room of you 26, whose job it is to go find companies and develop leads and go market the state of Louisiana and the economic opportunity that is Louisiana. And your job is to make sure that we are bringing those leads into this state. Right, show of hands. Crickets. That's when I knew we had to change foundationally the way we do economic development in Louisiana. So we're doing this on two different paths, and some of this is inside baseball, and I apologize if it's too much inside baseball, but I will tell you if we don't change the way we do it, we'll never change the outcomes. So we have two tracks right now. Number one is we have a piece of legislation moving through the process that fundamentally changes the statutes as it relates to how economic development can function. Number one is we're putting in an oversight board at our department that's called Louisiana Economic Development Partnership, and these people are going to be private sector people who have managed a payroll and built businesses and interfaced with government. Notice I said interface with government. They're not government. They have interfaced with government. And they understand planning, and they understand vision, and they understand a balance sheet, and they understand the importance of positioning Louisiana to win. So the first thing that this bill is going to do is make sure that our department has an oversight board made up of those very people. And their primary responsibility is going to be to create a strategic plan for economic development in Louisiana. So this slide always makes me laugh, because if you've heard the governor say this, he says, and he's dead right, he says, when you're dead last, you run fast. And so everything we're doing is running fast. And so the second fundamental thing that we're changing at our department is that if we want to compete with business, or compete for business rather, we have to be able to respond like a business. And if any of you who have dealt with government in this room will understand what I'm about to say, we cannot work at the speed of government. We have to work at the speed of business. So we are cutting all the red tape of all things bureaucracy inside of our department so that our department can respond to businesses when they want to come to Louisiana. And we're changing the culture. We're changing the culture in our department. We're changing the culture in our state from a no but to a yes and. When business leaders and industry leaders and people who want to have a conversation about bringing opportunities to Louisiana talk to us, our answer, and they ask, can you do it? Our answer is yes, and let us go figure out how, right? But the answer is yes, we can do it. From a business development perspective, remember the part I just said about how it was nobody's job to go get leads? We are fundamentally changing the way we do business development. We are hunters. We're not gatherers. We are hunters. We are changing the entire model of what we do. And there's another really important piece of this, and this comes directly from Governor Landry. We are going to focus on the very businesses that are already here, that have invested in this state over time, that have built their economy on their backs. And while it is always important in economic development to go chase shiny things, right? We are going to chase shiny things. But we are going to place equal import on the companies like S&W, where we just had an incredible announcement today, who have built this. Good for y'all, right? I love that we did the S&W announcement today. For those of you who don't know, S&W is a local company, Tangipahoa Parish, been here since 1978. We made an announcement today that they're making a $21 million investment in growth in Tangipahoa Parish in their company, and the Department of Economic Development helped with that. Those are the kinds of again, we will keep chasing shiny things because of all the green coats in the room, right? Because of our 21 and our 22 and our 23-year-olds who want a diverse economy and they want new things, and we will continue to do that. But the S&Ws of the world deserve all our attention and all our support and all our incentives, just like the new shiny things do. The other piece that we're doing, and I know we have a lot of our economic development partners in the room, Just like all politics is local, all successful economic development is local. And we are completely changing our structure inside a state building in Baton Rouge to make sure that economic developers on the most local level in both our parish and our regional structures are driving the agenda, the strategy, and the work of economic development. They don't need Baton Rouge telling them how to do it. They need Baton Rouge helping them do it. And so our department is completely shifting our focus to making sure our individual parish and our regional economic development organizations can thrive. This is a huge piece for me, and maybe this is generational, or maybe it's just the way that I think, but I'm a fundamental believer that the way you tell your story about your work is as critical as the work itself. The perspective of opportunity in Louisiana, and again, it goes back to the unacceptable reality. For how long have we just wrung our hands and accepted that there is an opportunity? It's not true. It really isn't, and that was my most exciting aha moment when I took this job. Our state is full of opportunities for economic success. But it's not just economic success for us as a state. Our state is full of opportunities for the 22-year-olds in the back of the room who are graduating. They just don't know it because we've been horrible storytellers. And so I believe part of our department's absolute responsibility is to make sure we tell the story effectively and continually. So for those of you who know what Washington Mardi Gras is, if you haven't been, you should go once, just once. And it's an important both sort of political and economic thing that happens in Washington, D.C. And that's where Governor Landry decided to announce my appointment. And what I realized within 1 hour of this job was that here was one thing we had to do differently. The sheer amount of CEOs who walked up to me at Washington Mardi Gras after my appointment and handed me their business card and said, use me. I have friends who want to bring their business here. I can give you leads. I have a successful business here. I want to tell my story. I'll go to any meeting you want me to go to. I'll go on business calls with you. Use me to sell this state because when you're successful, Susan, at LED, I'm successful. Countless, countless, countless examples of that. So the first hire that I made at our department from outside of the department, Rachel Shields, she's here and she's incredible. Many of you in this region know her. But Rachel's entire job is to build formal structures around using the private sector to drive the work of economic development, using the private sector leaders to drive government work because we can use you and you can help us do a better job. And so we are actively engaging the private sector in our work. We're creating the process for you to identify leads. You know what businesses might be interested in coming here. You know what business you're in that might have a supplier who could have a location here, right? You know. Why would we try to reinvent inside of government the very jobs and the very expertise that exists in this room? And the last piece on this part of our restructure is that successful economic development is an all-of-government effort. I love that you had Commissioner Temple here this morning, because I will tell you, I say this sort of facetiously, but I have said it. I looked at the governor, and I looked at Commissioner Temple, and I looked at our Secretary of Revenue, also from St. Tammany Parish, Richard Nelson, and I said, if you guys would just go do your jobs, mine would be a lot easier, right? It's kind of true, right? Tax policy, insurance reform, regulatory reform. When those things are better, and I'm sure Ted Abernathy explained to you all those challenges that we have, when we fix those, both in reality and in perception, the rest of what I do gets much, much easier. And I will say, under this administration, under Governor Landry's administration, but also with all our new statewide elected officials, and Commissioner Temple's a great example of it, this is an all-of-government effort. So back to this opportunity piece, right? And this is where I really want everybody in the green coats to listen. Louisiana is full of opportunities. We are primed for new investments across the sectors that we have historically paid attention to. So one of the things, I'll sort of go off script here into my marketing folks who are in the room. This is our first attempt at them doing a PowerPoint to get me to give a speech, and we'll see how it goes. But so I'm already going off script, right? One of the challenges you're about to see is I have a whole lot of slides on our target sectors. I'm a firm believer in strategic plans and the value of strategy, and when you have 12 target sectors, you really don't have any targets. So for right now, we're gonna say we have that many, but I want you all to know next year, if you invite me back to this will be very different in where we are focusing and where we're putting our energy and where we're putting our resources. But for now, I'm gonna tell you about the ones that matter, the ones we've been paying attention to, and many of the ones we'll continue to pay attention to. Agribusiness, again, S&W, a great example today. But do you realize that agribusiness all over the state is one of the primary economic drivers of our work? And it's not punch bowl strawberries, that's a great example, right? But here's another little interesting piece to it. The waste, how many of y'all have been down sort of Highway 90 during sugarcane season, down south of Lafayette, Morgan City, Franklin, any of those areas, right? You know the trash that comes off the sugarcane trucks and clutters and covers Highway 90 and it looks like litter? Anybody know what I'm talking about? You should go see it one day. It's a real thing. I mean, it's the byproduct of the pieces that fall off sugarcane once it's harvested. It's actually called bagasse. Learned that recently, right? So bagasse. Bagasse for forever in Louisiana, as long as sugarcane's been a crop, has been a nuisance, and it's been a byproduct that had to be cleaned, it had to be harvested, it had to be thrown away, it had to be disposed of. There are now industries in this state that are taking bagasse and turning it into a renewable jet fuel. That's agribusiness. That's sugarcane byproduct being turned into jet fuel. The space, the agribusiness space for Louisiana is endless. Military and defense. Who in this room, and I'm gonna say I was most guilty of it until the last 2.5 months that I've had this job. Anybody in this room ever been to Barksdale or Fort, it's Johnson, I almost called it Polk, it used to be Polk. How many, just 2, 3 hands, not many, 20, under 20 people? The amount of military and defense presence in this state is amazing, and it's significant to our economy. Our military activity generates $9.64 billion of economic impact in Louisiana. We don't realize that on the North Shore, other than when the planes going into Belle Chase fly over real loud, real low and real loud. That's the only time we realize it. But our military and defense sector is primed for growth for us. Transportation and logistics. This region, right? We know our absolute opportunity in this space. But there's another piece of this, and again, I'm gonna go off script a little bit, and there might be another slide that discusses this. Anybody know how many ports we have in Louisiana? Do you wanna guess? We have 32 ports in Louisiana. You know how many different governance structures and how many different plans and how many different budgets we have for ports in Louisiana? You guessed it, 32. You know how many ports Alabama has? Come on. 1. So in Louisiana, with all this opportunity in transportation and logistics, all the room we have for success in this space, I'm going to put my asterisk and go back to, remember that whole we're going to blow some things up thing? We have 32 ports who, because it's human nature, tend to compete with each other for budgets, for priorities, for positioning. You know who Mobile's competing against? Houston, right? Charleston. So, transportation and logistics is our opportunity. Changing the infrastructure of how we do this is our other opportunity. Manufacturing. There's so many cool stories here. I love this line. If you use it, need it, or eat it, somebody in Louisiana probably helped make it. Do you know if you're anywhere in this world and you're eating a Rice Krispie treat in a blue wrapper? Y'all familiar with what I'm talking about? Anywhere in the world, if you're eating that, you know where it was made? Louisiana. From rice in Louisiana. Grown in Louisiana and manufactured in Louisiana. Do you know if you're pumping Chevron gas with Techron anywhere in this country, you know where that was made? Belle Chase. We don't tell our stories. People don't realize what we do and the significance of our opportunity in the space. So energy, I could have done a whole conversation just on energy. You know, no matter what you think about politics, and this is a conversation I actually even have to be a little careful about with my new boss. Because regardless of the words you attach to energy, energy transition, and all of the above energy strategy, what Louisiana can be, no matter what we think politically, let's accept a few realities. Number one, Louisiana is an oil and gas state. Traditionally, we always have been, and we will be for a very long time in the future. Right? That's a good thing. But the second piece to that good thing is that because of Louisiana's history as an oil and gas state, and because of our industry infrastructure, and because of our workforce and our systems, we are positioned to take advantage of the global pressure, not domestic pressure, the global pressure for renewable energy in a way that no other state in this country can even compete. If my department does nothing else for the next 4 years than to focus on that, we will be wildly successful. No matter what you think of carbon capture, no matter what you think of whether we need to decarbonize the environment, you know what? The rest of the world believes we need to. So the rest of the world has mandates that any product they buy or touch has to have a carbon neutral footprint. So every process that's now taking place in energy, everywhere, has to have a decarbonization component to it. Louisiana is on the cutting edge of all of that. And it doesn't diminish our oil and gas presence. It doesn't diminish the amount of importance the oil and gas industry has historically contributed to the state and will continue to contribute to this state. Yeah, great example. If you've ever been to Baton Rouge, if you've ever been to the Capitol, if you look at the Capitol, you see some smokestacks behind the Capitol. Y'all know what that is? It's Exxon. It's the 5th largest refinery in the country. Okay? It's huge. It's where Exxon produces a massive amount of traditional refining of their oil and gas, right? On the exact same campus, there's this much smaller unit that happens to produce something. It's alcohol. It's isopropyl alcohol, which prior to March of 2020, most of us wouldn't have known what isopropyl alcohol was, right? But ironically, that oil and gas refinery in March of 2020 became a massive, important function for safety and security and health in our country. They ramped up their isopropyl alcohol production, and they produced more alcohol for hand sanitizer than anywhere in the South. So that in itself is really important, right? Oil and gas, smokestacks, back of the Capitol, traditional refining. We could start and stop there, because believe me, there's still a huge need for that. But let's just now talk about the isopropyl alcohol. Well, once they realized the isopropyl alcohol and ramped up that production because of COVID, you know what else you need very pure levels of isopropyl alcohol to provide? Microchips. So Exxon, the same Exxon that we all know with the refinery Exxon, is producing 99.9% pure isopropyl alcohol, which is the purity level that you need to create microchips. We are a critical feedstock for the microchip industry in this country, right? So our ability in this space as a state is endless. Bioinnovation, the amount of research, pharmaceutical and otherwise, that's happening here, there's an entire sector to this most of us on the North Shore don't know about. And it's happening in incredibly interesting places. Some of it's happening in New Orleans, and we know about that. A lot of it's happening in Baton Rouge, and we know about that. Most of it's happening in New Iberia, the largest primate research center in the country, New Iberia, Louisiana, pharmaceutical research. Entertainment. We all know about the film industry and the film tax incentives and what, how cool it is when 50 Cent opens a production studio in Shreveport, where I was last week. Thank you very much. My kids were so excited to think that I might get a picture with 50. I did not. Most of you in the room have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? The amount of economic movement through our entertainment industry, and it continues to grow, is an entirely new sector. And it's not just film, it's not just music, it's digital media. It's all things attached to that. And there's a creative class in our state that we are primed to take advantage of. So I love this slide. I want this slide in every presentation that I give, because I actually, if I was in a smaller group, I'd probably use some not so nice words. But how can we screw this up, y'all? I mean, look at that slide. This is the tributary and river system in North America, or in our country, obviously. There's a reason the Louisiana Purchase was what it was. There is no reason Louisiana should not only not be losing population, there's no reason we shouldn't be the fastest growing state in the South. There's no reason we shouldn't be the destination. We have abundant natural resources. We have world-class transportation and logistics. We have a highly integrated port, rail, highway, pipeline, and aviation network. We have a very pro-business mindset. We have generous incentives. And this is the piece that I have to be able to put better words around because I can sell this all day long, economic developers in the room. We have a multi-generational, hardworking, committed Louisiana labor force. The amount of people in families who have all worked in one sector, who know the pride of a good job, who are hardworking and proud of hard work, that doesn't exist in other states the way it exists in our culture. And it's packageable, and it's sellable, and it's one of our greatest assets. Our home, it's our most valuable asset. And when we take all of those pieces and turn it into opportunity, and then go back inside baseball and change all those structures and blow up all those dumb systemic infrastructures that limit us, it's where our opportunity thrives. So thank y'all for listening to me today, and I'm happy to answer questions about our work. I'm watching. No questions. It was fully comprehensive, right? No, I'm wise enough to know I'm the only thing standing between, for the most part, y'all and a beautiful day outside. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.